So, we came out here to shoot a completely different video. And it's cold.
It's very cold.
Yeah.
It's about 25.
25, 26. Yeah,
And it's warmed up.
Yeah, that's warmer than it was. So, and it's windy. But as we were talking, we realized that, with the YouTube videos we put out, we haven't really done one just talking about us. So, let's say we go back inside and warm up, and we'll sit down with you guys and tell you all about us and our magical story. So, see you guys inside with a cup of coffee. Hi. Hi.
You're really close.
Alright, so I guess I'll start. I grew up extremely agriculture. Like to the point where daycare for me was riding breed pens with my dad and Baxter Black on the MC Ranch in Adel, Oregon. Agriculture. So because of that, I knew a lot of the dark side of farming and large commodity agriculture, and really didn't want anything to do with it. So I went to the Marine Corps. I was with 2-4 in Ramadi, Iraq, back in 2004. Got home from Iraq and decided to come down to Tennessee to try and get a government job over at the nuclear power plant. And that didn't happen. And I met her.
Yep, I was just a little city girl. I grew up in town, eating out of the grocery stores, doing anything that you would in a big city. I actually was a ballroom dancer for a while. Not professionally or anything, but it was fun. Kept me busy, kept me doing things. When I met him, we kind of started expanding my mental processes. Learning a lot about a lot of different things. Eventually, we started moving all over the country. Ended up in North Dakota for a long time. So when we were there, I started learning a lot more about our food, about where it comes from, and how it's made, and how it's raised, and things like that. So I learned a lot at that time.
And it was all the things that for years I had been complaining about why I didn't want to eat Tyson chicken, why I didn't like eating fast food, and why spend a little bit of extra money on this meat or that meat or these vegetables or those vegetables, and just all of my tinfoil hat craziness about food, because I knew all of the dark, nasty secrets hidden inside the pretty packaging.
And I like to keep my blindfold on and my earplugs in, because I didn't really want to know about it, I don't think, back in that time. I was happy in my ignorance. And then once that was lost, it just opened up a rabbit hole, and we just kept going down.
Yeah.
We followed that white rabbit all the way down.
Yeah, so we left North Dakota because, it was 2015. By that point, I was in the oil field.
Jobs.
It died.
And family.
Yeah, her family lives down in Tennessee. So we came to the decision to move down to Tennessee again. And I could not handle it. But it's also a food desert. With the jobs that we got and the difference in income, having gone from making a 6-figure-a-year salary on my end
in the oil field,
to me starting a small construction company. We were
also growing the family at the same time.
Yeah, had a third kid.
Yeah. Grocery bills were a little bit crazy.
Outrageous.
Yeah. So we started making concessions, and we started noticing health differences and changes with what we're eating, with how we're feeling, and how we're dealing with stresses physically and things like that. So it was
down to even how we were interacting with each other emotionally, and then I dug up half the backyard and we planted a garden.
Working in the soil helped. Growing things helped. I enjoyed the process of it. I loved watching my kids run out the back door and grab some tomatoes off the vine and just eat them, or tomato, or grabbing some spinach or kale and just kind of munching on it while they run around the backyard playing. It was great. I never had to fight with them about eating their vegetables, and even to today, they will eat their salad and their veggies first,
right,
and leave everything else until last. So,
and that's kind of the way I grew up as a kid. I remember my great grandma thinking that, sending me out with a 22, saying, "Go get all the rabbits that are eating the spinach," and I was like, "No, Grandma, I'm eating the spinach. Right. It's my snack. Like, why would I come inside and go get into the refrigerator? You're in here busy. I just go out to the garden and I grab some tomatoes or some spinach and yeah. So that's how rabbits. I grew up. Bad rap. There weren't any rabbits to get. So, but that's how I grew up, and that's what we wanted, and that's what really started driving our focus to finding a piece of property, because the deeper she went down the gardening rabbit hole, the more, because if you're going to plant a garden, well, maybe you should have some chickens. And you can't have chickens in the city.
No, we started finding out the laws and the rules and regulations, and you can't have a rooster, which, the noisiness of them, they're pretty loud. But you can only have so many chickens, and they have to be so far away from property lines. And then on, a quarter acre that we were on at the house in town, doesn't leave room for anything. You can't do it. It doesn't make it possible.
I mean, we already had a neighbor next to us that didn't like the fact that we would let our dogs outside when it was raining in our fenced-in backyard. So it came down to the point where we needed to buy property. We needed to buy land. We
needed to expand.
So
we're going to keep going with it.
Yeah. So about 2 years.
It's probably closer to 3 now.
Well, no. I was thinking about the planning process. The amount of
we probably planned for about a year or so, really digging in and figuring out what we were wanting to do, so that we knew what we wanted to look for in a property. Yeah,
we went and got I really have always kind of liked Joel Salatin style of poultry. We knew, because when I met her, that was the only animal protein she would eat was chicken.
That's changed.
Yeah, a lot. So I knew that we wanted to do some form of poultry. I grew up raising and breeding pigs. That's actually how I bought my first Super Nintendo. So I wanted to have pigs because I love doing charcuterie. I love making bacon. So we knew those two things. But we originally started out more looking at the market garden aspect of things.
The growing food and veggies side. So anywhere we look, in East Tennessee, if anyone's visited or lived here, you know that there are no flat spaces around here. Everything is a hill. So then you get into how much of a hill is okay. Do we want a terrace? How much building are we going to have to do in order to put a garden in?
Yeah, because, 7 acres of flat pasture land was absolutely not in our budget. I mean, we didn't have $1.5 million to go out and buy a house that would fit a family of 5 and have the flat land and be in an area we wanted. So our search was rather limited.
And honestly, we found our place we're in now by luck. We were traveling to see a blacksmith. I was getting back into doing some blacksmithing, and I was building a new forge. And we went up to Sunbright, Tennessee to see a member of the Abana group and buy forge making stuff. Mm-hmm. And we drove by this place, and I was kind of like, man, I like this area. Had a sign out front for sale.
Yeah. And then the sign...
And I said, I don't know.
She was like, no.
It's a little far out. I don't think that's going to work.
No, her words were absolutely not, I'm not living out here.
Oh, I never would say that.
She's like, absolutely not. That's way too far out. We're not living out here. And I kind of pushed and prodded, and we did look at a lot of other properties, but just...
Well, when it came down to it, honestly, the last few houses that we lived in, or the last few places that we lived in, I had picked, and honestly, they weren't great. He hated them. Everything about them. I mean, moving to Tennessee wasn't his idea. That was mine, because that's where my family lives. You know, moving into that house in town was not what he wanted, but it was what was available and in our price range. So with this one, I let him take the lead, and I said, if that's what you want and that's what you think is going to work for what we've been talking about, then let's do it.
Yeah, because I'm the one that had actually done, and I looked at this property, and for our plans of what we wanted to do, it had been neglected for 30 years, and before we had even talked to our realtor about it, I had actually called our NRCS office, and I had called
our local agricultural
extension office, and I hit it off with them. We had a lot of talk. They were excited about
what we were talking about and what we were planning.
Wanting to come out, bringing our kids out and doing small agriculture and, you know, putting back into the community.
I mean, this farm that we're living at is old in this area. It's been farmed and it's been lived on by the same family for generations.
Yeah, we've actually gone to church with the granddaughter of the original owner that it was purchased from. So
I mean, you meet people all the time. You tell them where you live, and they go, "Oh, that's the old so and so place."
Yeah, yeah. We don't even tell them, "Oh, it's on this road by this intersection." We just like, "Oh, it's part of this guy's old place," and they're like, "Oh, yeah, with the brick house and the barn. Yeah, I love that place." So,
so people were excited that someone was going to use the property again, and that was good. It it helped us get into the community and meet people and not have them not like us off the bat as some city slickers moving to town.
Well, and that's what after we had moved in, the people we bought it from had actually bought it. They had lived in it for maybe a year, and they just found out that the farming style. The farming life was not for them, and that's okay. So we ended up taking the place over. It was too much for them to handle with a new baby, and it's
far away from the grocery store. So if you're not raising your own food, it's at least 20 minutes to get to the basic grocery store.
And we're back.
Sorry, our camera cut off on us.
Where's a good place to start that back up at?
Living here is not for everyone.
No.
And honestly, it took me a long time to get used to it too. The local grocery store doesn't have a whole lot of stuff. And when we first moved in, we didn't have a garden.
Yeah.
We didn't have a freezer full of food. We still had to rely on the grocery stores and the mainstream way of feeding your family.
Yeah.
So it was a little tough at the beginning.
Yeah, because we moved in right before Thanksgiving of 2019. Yep. Like, our first full day here was November 19th of 2019. And the people had kind of mowed. Actually, the first time the property got fully brush hogged in probably 5-6 years was when our neighbor brought over his 150 horsepower tractor and Batwing 18 for 16 foot brush hog, and he just went to town mowing over saplings.
And that was fall of 2020.
Yeah,
was when he came to do that. So we worked on a property. All I had to deal with maintaining the property was a walk behind mower
and a weed eater.
Didn't work all the time. So really, it was a weed eater. I had a weed eater to cut paths to go to places. And I felt bad. We're trying to start a business. We're trying to start, join the community, and it looks like we don't care. So it was a struggle. But thankfully, we have amazing neighbors.
Yep.
They helped us out so much until we were able to get the equipment that we need.
Well, we bought the brush hog from them.
We did. We did.
Neighbors called me the other day, and they're like, "Hey, we just came back from an auction, and we got a $400 brush hog. Do you want it?" And I said, "Yes, I will be over there in like an hour to get it."
He spent the rest of the day brush hogging the field.
Because it needed it. I mean, and one of those things, just growing up in agriculture, you have to keep property mowed. We had major predator issues this spring this year.
We lost over 100 chicks.
Because we didn't have the equipment and ability to keep the grass mowed to
keep them away.
Yeah, to make it a big kill box for marine. So using words like that, a big kill box for all the predators to actually take out the small rodents and the foxes. Like a fox and even a rat doesn't want to go running across a big open empty field. So if you don't have those things mowed, you're gonna have some higher mortality rates on your animals.
And it was rough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's half of our inventory this year. Our meat chickens that we raised, that's half gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard.
And it's just it's one of those. And she didn't even want
We're
animals.
down holes now.
She didn't even really want animals. Right before Christmas, I came home with a box of baby chicks. And
we were not planning that until spring.
And said, "Here you go. Here's those black Australorps you wanted."
So 1 month.
They were on sale.
1 month of living in the house. We're still unpacking boxes and getting things put away. And he comes home from visiting a friend with a box of baby chicks.
It happens.
I said, well, I guess we're moving our timeline up.
Well, I mean, we ordered 50 laying hens that year.
Right.
It wasn't, but I would rather, and the reason I did that is I would rather have, I wanted to pull that Band-Aid off. Because they were Tractor Supply chicks, and
if they lived, they lived. If they didn't, it wasn't that big of an investment. And they lived in the bathtub in an unused bathroom off of our kitchen because the barn was not usable yet.
Yeah.
we had nowhere else to put it, so in the bathtub they went.
Yep. And you know, we did that more so, you know, we could start small. And I wanted to know before we went out and spent several $100s on poultry
if I hated chickens.
If she hated chickens, and if she could handle the emotional side of, you know, losses. I mean, mortality rates, especially on Tractor Supply baby chicks, you're going to have mortality rates. I mean, I think out of the 9, we ended up with 7.
Yeah.
So, which
is a pretty good rate.
Pretty good rate. Yeah, we were very surprised by the rate, but that's why, you know, rip the Band-Aid off. You know, let's know about this before we spend several $100s on poultry and another $500-600 on building the mobile coop and building the chicken tractors, and another, would we spend 25, almost $3,000 on electric fencing? Before we spend all that money, let's make sure that you don't hate chickens.
Right. So. Well, and as the year went by, you know, with trying to start a new garden on unused soil for so long.
And lovely East Tennessee red clay.
Clay and hills and rocks. And, you know, the only tools we had were hand tools. I had a broad fork, I had a rake, I had shovels. We rented a tiller just to help tear up the land a little bit so we can get into it.
Yep.
But it was a struggle. You know, if you don't have that walk-behind tractor, you don't have the ability to use a big implement like a full-size tractor.
Yeah.
You know, it's not feasible to do a market garden. So we had to rethink our plan and say, you know, I know this was what we wanted when we started, but honestly, I really enjoyed working with the animals.
Yeah.
You know, raising the chickens, having the laying hens, they're a little bit more pet-like than the meat birds are. Those are food.
Yeah.
The laying hens give us food.
Yeah.
The meat birds are food. But it's fun. Like, you know that's what they're going to end up as, but you give them the best life that you can, and you love on them, and you make friends with them, and then they have one bad day.
Yeah. And we do follow that practice. You know, everything out here has a great life and one bad day. Because I've done feedlot animals, and I've done confinement poultry, and I've done confinement pork, and I don't want any part of that. It's depressing. It's not a fun way to live as a human being, being involved in that. So, yeah. Then I kept finding these great deals on baby pigs.
Yeah. We had quite the hodgepodge of pigs. We had a couple Kuni mixes. We had some
mystery genetics. Part potbelly, part
had to
red
have some
wattle,
potbelly.
part something. Just a mess.
It was interesting. They were mostly were friendly.
Yeah, I mean, I'd grown up dealing with pigs, so
I did
not. I already knew that you have to work with those animals. Like,
right.
if you're not investing the time with those animals, especially because I had already planned on home processing, basically because I bought them spur of the moment, and there was absolutely no way we were getting in at a processor.
No.
Anytime, because you have to set those things up like a year in advance.
And we started buying animals right at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah,
and so everything shut down. Yeah. Everything booked up. Everything went kaput.
Yeah.
So we just kind of had to do it all ourselves, which was good, I think, for me to see that side of things to that extent.
Yeah, and there was no easy way out for me of just, oh, hey, babe, we're just going to pay an extra $200 to go get these pigs slaughtered because I don't feel like doing it. So we had to hit the ground running that first year.
Or the chickens. Due to circumstances. That was my job with the chickens is the initial dispatch, and that was hard.
Yeah.
To know what to do and how to do it the right way so that the chicken's not suffering and it's not inhumane and it's, what needs to be done and you do it the most efficient way you can.
And so you can, still sleep at night and not feel like crap because your animal that you just spent all that time raising and caring for
suffered in the end.
Spent all that time suffering before they went into your freezer.
Right.
So, yeah. Here we are 2 years later, and like when we first started out, we went through a lot of the usual things we expected. Finding a feed mill. We actually, I looked and I looked and I looked and I looked and I looked, and feed mills aren't exactly the type of places that have a Facebook page.
Well, the reason we wanted to find a feed mill is because we are followers of Joel Salatin and that type of farming. We knew that the food that you buy at a feed store is not what we wanted to feed our animals. We knew that there was a lot of filler to it. There wasn't the proteins or the right kind of proteins or the right kind of minerals. So we were really picky and really specific about what we wanted. And honestly, as soon as I got our farm up on Facebook, I got a phone call from a local pastured poultry farmer who was doing essentially what we're doing, starting small and kind of growing from there. And he says, hey, have you heard about this? What are you doing for that? Did you hear about this feed mill up here? He does a custom mix for me. You get everything you need except for these little minerals that you have to buy separate and mix it in. And I said, man, that's awesome. That's what we need.
Yep.
So now we drive an hour and a half one way to pick up a ton of feed at a time and an hour and a half back. But it's worth it because the way that the animals, their health, their taste when you harvest them, the eggs that we get from our laying hens, there is such a difference just because of what they're eating. I knew that it would happen, but I was surprised by how much of a difference.
And I hate speaking ill of anything, but I knew that the feed that we were getting from the local box stores or even our local co-op, just with the nature of agriculture, most of what, especially poultry, most of what they're being fed is some form of a downstream waste product. Spent brewing grains. What does go in is like grain screening, so most of what's in it is oxidized. So we knew we wanted a full grain feed mix because I at least understood how much of a difference that makes, because the animals are then able to develop the complex amino acids and everything inside of them to where theirs taste better, because when it comes down to it, you are what you eats. So, and that the finding that guy through Facebook and having him reach out to us, that is another huge reason why we chose to do the small regenerative agriculture.
Because it's such a great community. It's not a competition between farmers. It's a sharing of knowledge.
And growing up Midwest around multi-thousand acre row croppers, there is a burn your neighbor's camp down to
Very
make
cutthroat.
that super cutthroat over an extra 10 cents an acre. Over an extra 2 cents a pound on live weight cattle, because their margins are so tight on those things that they're kind of forced to be. It's just part of the nature of doing large commodity agriculture. One more reason, number 3,576, why I want nothing to do with that. And that's actually what's kind of led us to do YouTube videos. It's not necessarily for, growing our business. It's more to give back to the small agricultural community. Because the longer we've been doing this, the more we find ourselves answering questions on forums and engaging on social media.
So all the knowledge that was given to us, we want to turn around and give it back to someone else who might need it.
Yeah.
So that's what we're here for. So, if you guys have questions about anything, send us a message.
Yeah.
If we don't know, we will see what we can do to find out, or, find someone more knowledgeable than us.
Yep.
Who'd be able to get in touch with you and answer questions too. So, we're still learning too. We're still working on getting our farm set up. We're still getting...
Well, I mean, farming at its core is just implementation of systems. You pick
an adaptation.
Well, yeah, you pick a farming system and you adapt it to your down to the nitty gritty. Get the legal pad out and write 15 pages out about what you want to do. Adapt it to what you specifically are wanting to do in your area. Once you find your property that'll work with what you're doing, then you make small incremental adjustments on things. It shouldn't be massive changes. So that's why we did the Joel Salatin thing. That's why we do the pastured pork. That's why we only will probably ever do 500 meat birds, maybe 20 pigs, and what do we decide on? Maybe 50 turkeys, probably more closer to 30.
Yeah, I was going to say 30.
Yeah, 30. Because that's what we're able to do for our time, and our land can handle it, and just all of the...
Well, and with us processing it, it takes time for us too. This is not all that he does.
Yeah.
He's got a day job during the week that he's gone all week long.
Yep.
So the day-to-day is me. I have to do it all. So when it comes down to harvesting, it's in one weekend.
Yeah.
You get it done in 2 days, or you don't get it done.
Yeah, 50 birds and 10 turkeys and a pig, all in. Hey, I'm taking an extra day off from driving a truck this week, make sure this is in the ISO yard, this is set up, and this is going, and we got ice, and we have these, and this needs washed, and these need sharpened, and it's all got to get done, and it's all got to fit in. And another principle we follow is we want to feed ourselves first.
Yes.
I spent too much time dealing with farmers who would never actually eat anything they produce. And it makes you very coarse and disconnected from everything. We started doing this because we wanted to feed our kids. And even knowing what I know about agriculture, I don't even try. The big commodity-based chain stores that claim to be super good for you, I've always had issue with, because I know how... I grew up where if you never got to see the cow, you don't want to buy them. So,
Right.
or you better at least really, really know that butcher well. So, we have that principle as well, that we want to feed our kids first. Everything else is just excess. It just happens that when we pick the systems that we use, it's just as easy to raise 50 chickens at a time as it is 10.
Yep.
You need just as much infrastructure to raise 2 pigs as you do 20. You need just as much infrastructure to raise 1 or 2 Thanksgiving turkeys as you do 25, 30.
Yeah.
It's just as easy to take an old boat trailer and make a mobile chicken coop that you can move around for 10 chickens for laying hens as it is to make one that can hold, 70. So you're still going to be investing that time anyway. So we just decided to do, the 1800s style farming that my great-grandma and great-grandpa ended up doing, of you grow what you need and you sell the excess.
Yep.
Yeah. And also, everybody's welcome to come out and do a farm tour.
Oh yeah, we welcome people to come out and see how we do it, why we do it, what we feed our animals. Pet a pig.
Yeah,
because they love it.
Yeah, and if you come out on the weekend, I will happily melt your brain for hours about some things like compost or like.
Oh yeah, the nitty gritty is down to him. I just move things.
The complexities of why you need something to eat grass to build proper soil biology, and why you have to have chickens and pigs and goats and things in order to do regenerative. And yeah, I love getting deep into it. Before I get down a rabbit hole, I'll stop. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of covers who we are and what we do and why we do it. Here in a little bit, we'll take you back out on the farm, out on the field, and we'll show you where we're at and what our plans are for the future. And I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about us.
Yeah. The magic of editing.
Just love it on Piglet.
She loves love.